You need to see this right now because what happened in the last hour, a large-scale coordinated strike on U.S. military installations, is not just an incident. It is the end of an era. The impenetrable shield of American dominance has been shattered, and the people running the show in Washington are terrified that you'll find out just how defenseless our boys on the ground have become. In my time as a Marine Corps intelligence officer, I learned to look past the propaganda and focus on the cold, hard data. I've analyzed theater-level conflicts for decades, from the inspections in Iraq to the current escalation in the Levant, and the data I am seeing from my sources on the ground right now indicates a total systemic failure of Western military posture. As I speak, the skies over our regional hubs in Jordan, Iraq, and Qatar are orange, not from the sunrise, but from the cascading secondary explosions of hardened fuel depots and ammunition dumps that were supposed to be unreachable. I want you to imagine the sensory reality of this. It's not the sharp crack of a firework. It's a low-frequency, earth-shaking rumble that vibrates in your chest, the sound of Mach 7 hypersonic signatures tearing the atmosphere apart as they re-enter the terminal phase. There is the smell of cordite, burning jet fuel, and pulverized concrete drifting through the corridors of bases like Al-Assad and Al-Udeid. The flickering communication lines tell a story of absolute unmitigated chaos. Stay with me because the most shocking part of this, the actual smoking gun that proves the Pentagon has been lying to you about our defensive capabilities, is coming in just a moment. I will reveal the specific telemetry data that shows our Aegis systems didn't just miss, they were completely bypassed. But first, you have to understand the technical reality of Wave 55 of this Iranian operation. The mainstream media is going to tell you that most of the missiles were intercepted. They are lying. Having studied Iranian missile doctrine for years, I knew this day was coming, but even I am stunned by the precision. This was a masterclass in saturation tactics. They didn't just throw flying lawnmowers or slow drones at the problem. They used a sophisticated multi-tiered strike package designed to force a mathematical collapse of the Aegis and Patriot systems. Think about the logistics. We are firing SM-3 interceptors that cost $15 million to $30 million a pop. We are using THAAD batteries and Patriot PAC-3 MSE missiles that are finite in number. We do not have the industrial capacity to replace these in real time. Iran is saturating the airspace with $50,000 drones and decoy projectiles, but those were just the bait. While our billion-dollar radar arrays were busy tracking the slow movers, the Fata-1 and Fata-2 hypersonics were already hitting their targets. My sources are confirming that the ANTPY-2 radar systems, the literal eyes of the American defense posture in the region, were saturated to the point of blindness. When you have 200 targets on a screen and only 40 interceptors in the tubes, you don't have a defense. You have a slaughter. The air is thick with the smell of scorched earth at these bases. I'm seeing reports of massive craters on the primary runways, rendered unusable for F-22 and F-35 sorties. This is theater-level paralysis, but it doesn't stop there. As the tactical strikes land, we are seeing the beginning of a regional war that the elites in DC promised would never happen. This is the stress response loop in action. It starts with a tactical strike on a military base, but it is moving toward a regional conflagration that will fundamentally alter the way you live your life. If you think this is just a desert war far away, you are gravely mistaken. The escalation ladder is being climbed at a blistering pace. We have moved from a tactical exchange to a regional blockade. The Straits of Hormuz are the jugular vein of the global economy, and that vein is being constricted as we speak. This is where it hits home for every American watching this. The petrodollar, the very foundation of American hegemony, and the reason your dollar has any value at all, is tied to the stability of these oil routes. When the unthinkable happens and the straits are closed, you aren't looking at $4 or $5 gas, you are looking at $15 gas. You are looking at a supply chain collapse that will make the pandemic look like a minor inconvenience. Your bank account is directly linked to the flight path of those Iranian missiles. The elites don't want you to connect those dots because they want you compliant and quiet until it's too late to move your assets. Stay focused, because I am going to reveal the smoking gun that the Pentagon is trying to bury, the actual status of the U.S. Fifth Fleet, by the end of this video. Look at the history of the weapons being used. The Iranians didn't develop these in a vacuum. While we were offshoring our manufacturing and focusing on social engineering and woke sensitivity training in the military, the Iranian defense sector was building missile cities deep underground. We are talking about hundreds of miles of tunnels hardened against nuclear strikes, capable of launching thousands of projectiles per hour. They developed the Hajj Qasim ballistic missile, which has a circular error probable. That's the accuracy for those of you who don't speak the lingo. That is terrifyingly small. We are talking about hitting a specific hangar or a specific command and control node from 400 kilometers away. During Wave 55, we saw the deployment of submunitions designed to shred the delicate electronics of our radar batteries before the main warheads even arrived. This is a blind and strike maneuver. If you take out the radar, the entire defense architecture becomes a collection of very expensive targets. The psychology of the decision makers in the Pentagon right now is one of pure, unadulterated panic. I know these people. I've sat across the table from them. They are neoconservative ideologues who have never seen the business end of a rifle. They believe their own press releases. They thought the Iranians were backward and incapable. They forgot the primary rule of intelligence: never underestimate your adversary. Iran has spent 30 years studying how we fight. They watched us in Iraq, they watched us in Afghanistan, and they found the Achilles heel of the American military-industrial complex. They realized that you don't need to sink a carrier. You just need to make the cost of operating that carrier so high that the American public demands it be brought home. I feel a deep sense of patriotic anger and grief for our young men and women in uniform currently stationed in the Middle East. They are being used as human tripwires for a policy that has no exit strategy. I remember the smell of a ready room before a mission, the ozone, the salt, the quiet hum of the electronics. But that hum is a death knell when you're facing Mach 10 signatures that your radar can't lock onto until they've already cleared the horizon. We are sending our best against a threat we refused to acknowledge until the missiles were already in the air. It makes me angry. It should make you angry. And it should make every patriot in this country demand to know why we were lied to about our technological superiority. Now, let's go deeper into the economic consequences for the average American viewer's bank account. If the US cannot protect its bases, it cannot protect the petrodollar. If the petrodollar dies, the dollar is no longer the global reserve currency. This means the trillion-dollar debts we've racked up suddenly matter. We are talking about a 40% overnight devaluation of your savings. We are talking about hyperinflation that will make your current paycheck unable to cover the cost of a week's groceries. The elites have their gold, they have their offshore accounts, and they have their private jets. You have your 401k and your home equity, both of which are currently being vaporized by the reality on the ground that the media is hiding. Every 3 to 4 paragraphs, the stakes get higher. We've moved from tactical strikes to regional war and economic collapse. Now we move to the unthinkable scenario when a conventional power like the United States realizes it cannot win a war of attrition. The military doctrine calls for de-escalation through escalation. That is a fancy way of saying tactical nuclear weapons. We are now closer to the nuclear threshold than at any point since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The flickering communication lines between Washington and the regional commands are currently buzzing with the what-if scenarios that should keep every American awake at night. If we use a tactical nuke to stop the Iranian advance, Russia and China do not stay on the sidelines. This is the existential cliff we are standing on. Stay with me because I'm about to reveal the smoking gun that I've been holding back. Having analyzed theater-level conflicts for decades, I can tell you that the logistics of this Iranian attack were flawless. They used geospatial masking to hide their launch signatures. They used the terrain of the Zagros Mountains to hide their TLs, transporter erector launchers, from our overhead surveillance. By the time our satellites picked up the thermal bloom of the launches, the missiles were already entering the terminal phase. This is an intelligence failure of the highest order. It's a failure on par with Pearl Harbor, and yet the mainstream media is talking about de-escalation. There is no de-escalation when your primary regional command center is currently a smoking crater. The sensory drama is unfolding in real time. I'm receiving reports of sirens that haven't stopped for 40 minutes. The sound of secondary explosions at fuel farms is creating a seismic signature that is being picked up by stations as far away as Europe. This isn't a skirmish, this is a decapitation strike. The elites want you to think we can manage this. You can't manage a hypersonic missile that moves faster than the computer can process the intercept logic. Why did this happen? Because the Pentagon is captured by defense contractors who want expensive, flashy toys that don't work in a real world saturation environment. They wanted the F-35, a plane that requires a pristine runway and a massive logistical tail instead of focusing on the grit and grind reality of missile defense. The Iranians conversely focused on asymmetric parity. They knew they couldn't outbuild our Navy, so they built the missiles to sink it. They knew they couldn't outfly our Air Force, so they built the missiles to shred the runways. And this morning, the math was proven correct. The emotional shift for me right now is a mix of insider pride in the technical analysis, but overwhelming grief for the Republic. I see the data, and it is a masterpiece of military planning done by our enemies. It makes me sick to my stomach to see the flag I served being hauled down from bases because we didn't have the foresight to see the world as it is, rather than how we wanted it to be. Let's look at your bank account again. If the maritime insurance rates for the Persian Gulf go up 1,000%, which they are doing as we speak, the cost of every electronic device, every gallon of gas, and every piece of clothing made in Asia goes up with it. We are looking at a total freeze of the global credit markets. If the elites can't guarantee the safety of the oil, the banks won't lend. If the banks won't lend, the businesses close. This is the reality that the mainstream media is scrubbing from the narrative. They want you to keep spending, keep working, and keep your money in the system so the big players can get out first. Now, for the smoking gun, the piece of data that the Pentagon is hiding, I have seen the preliminary battle damage assessment, BDA, from a source I have trusted for 20 years. It shows that the hardened command bunkers at al-Assad, designed to withstand a direct hit from conventional ordnance, were breached by a new type of kinetic penetrator that the Iranians haven't even officially unveiled yet. We are talking about a warhead that doesn't explode on impact but uses sheer velocity to drill through 30 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. Our leadership was told these bunkers were safe. They were wrong. The personnel inside, some of our highest ranking tactical commanders in the region, are currently unaccounted for. The Pentagon is keeping this quiet to prevent a total collapse of morale. This is the slaughter the title of this video warned you about. It's not just a slaughter of personnel, it's a slaughter of American prestige. It's a slaughter of the myth of invincibility. And as the unthinkable nuclear scenario looms, we have to ask ourselves, who is actually in charge? The people who didn't see this coming, the people who lied about the efficacy of the Patriot missile, the people who are currently hiding in their own bunkers while your kids are in the line of fire. The world you knew is gone. The orange sky, the smell of cordite, the flickering communication lines, these are the signs of a new reality, a reality where the United States is no longer the sole superpower, a reality where our elites have gambled away our security for the sake of their own ideological fantasies. Iran is just getting started. This large-scale attack was Wave 55. My sources indicate Wave 56 is already on the pads. They are waiting for our response. If we respond conventionally, they launch. If we respond with the unthinkable, the world ends. You need to take this seriously. You need to move your assets into things that are real. You need to prepare your family for a period of extreme economic and social instability. The reality on the ground is that the bases are destroyed, the air defense is shattered, and the slaughter has begun. I've analyzed theater-level conflicts for decades, and I've never seen a darker map than the one I'm looking at right now. Keep your eyes open. Don't believe the scrubbed narrative you'll see on the news tonight. They will tell you it's a setback. It's not a setback. It's a defeat. It's the end of the American century arriving at Mach 7. I will continue to bring you the data as it comes in. I will continue to speak the truth that the elites want to bury, because you deserve to know what's coming. You deserve to know the reality of the ground. Stay alert, stay prepared, and for God's sake, stay awake. The radar is silent, the missiles are in the air, and the world has changed forever. This is Scott Ritter, and I'm telling you, the truth is the only defense we have left.